And I don't think I've introduced myself. My name is Larry Green. I'm one of the MCs for this entire event, so you'll get to see a whole lot of me between today and tomorrow.
Hi everyone, I'm Lauren. And I'm Lily. And welcome to the first panel discussion with our awesome Bayview design team.
As Lauren said, thank you so much for everyone joining us. We're going to guide through this panel discussion with these incredible folks sitting right beside us. We do have a section at the end for open Q&A, so we just ask everyone if you can please hold your questions until the end, and we will get right to it.
Awesome. We're going to kick off with the panelists introducing themselves and telling us their favorite Bayview design element. So we are going to start with Michelle.
Great. Hi. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. Hi. Welcome. My name is Michelle Kaufman. I am an architect by training, but my role on these first ground up buildings, which includes Bayview and its sister cousin project down the road called Gradient Canopy, was a fewfold. It was working in the early days on the design with our incredible architects that we hired to work in collaboration with us, and a whole group of very smart engineers and builders, and even trying some things that didn't exist before. And my favorite thing on this project, I would say, is the bird frit. I don't know if you guys saw it on your tour. It's a little Easter egg. Yeah, some folks saw it. So we have the bird frit. Did everybody see it? No. Okay, for folks who did not see it, we have bird frit on the outside of the glass of the building so that it's just small little dots on the glass so birds can see it, so they know even though the glass is really reflective, they won't fly into it and die and kill themselves, which we don't want to have happen. But you still can see out. But instead of just doing dots everywhere, we made it into a puzzle. So it's using binary code of zeros and ones to spell out a bunch of native bird species. And then in the sister project, we did it as a huge word puzzle of the whole facade having 30 different local bird species in 30 different languages. So it's just a fun Easter egg to look for.
Cool. And let's be clear, she's not an architect, she's an architect extraordinaire. So let's be clear. So I'm Jennifer Eisner, I'm Director of Workplace Services here, a little bit of feedback. And I was actually hired into Google to bring this project into operations, and that's done. So I don't know what I do now. No, I'm kidding. So I have lots of others. But I will also add, for any of you that are interested in bird frit, that birds are not that smart, so they couldn't figure out the code. And what's more important is that if any of you actually are dealing with birds, you actually can't put plants up against the windows because then they can't see the frit, so they still fly into the windows. So your plants have to be at least 10 feet away from the window so that they can see the frit. And that's the kind of things that I have to know. So when people then design the building. So my role is to bring the building into operations and make sure that it operates well so that 2 years later, when we have people in the building, it's actually a year and a half, we have people in the building that everything's going swimmingly and perfect. And my favorite design element is not the bird frit, sorry. And I don't know if I can narrow it down to one, so I'm going to give two. On your wonderful tour, we actually have areas that visitors cannot go. And nothing against the visitors, but that's where my favorite areas are. We have a courtyard called Tea Time Terrace that's very calming and quiet and full of plants and higher seats, and it's just wonderful. And you go and get your little tea at a little cafe called Tea Leaves, and it's beautiful. And I love that. And then my second one is operationally, and I don't know if any of your tour guides shared this, the entire campus has underground tunnels. So it's all connected underground. It's kind of like Disneyland. So for those of us that are operating the space, we can get from one spot to another without anybody ever seeing us. And that's how we can move things around without any of the Googlers having to see us or any visitors having to see us. So if we need to move furniture around or toilet plunger or whatever else, we can quickly go. And yes, we have golf carts too. So that's my favorite thing.
You can imagine when Jen and I give design updates on things, our slide decks are very different. She literally helped me make a slide which is all photographing the tunnels.
That's correct.
Underneath.
Yeah. And we took
people are going to love this.
Yeah. We took a G-bike down there and strapped on like a GoPro and then just rode the bikes through. and it was really fun.
Jen, the more you talk, the more your hair stands up and electricity in the back. I'm Kevin Antonelli. I'm the Senior Director of Global Construction for Google. And I've had the pleasure of working on two Bayviews. The first one that we built, and well, we were almost done, put the steel up. I was the general contractor working for my friend over here, Mr. Curry, some of you met today. I was not a Googler, I was working for Turner Construction Company. Some of you may know that name. And we had designed it, we had purchased the steel for 5 buildings, and Larry came out, Mr. Page, not Larry, they had the big Larry, came out and said, it's not enough, it's not inspirational enough, it's not something that I really want my name associated with. So we stopped the project. And a year and a half later, we restarted the project and we designed this. And I think, you know, I've been involved in the construction industry for around 35 years. And I don't really have an element of design that I'm particularly, as a matter of fact, these two on my side are the architects, I'm the constructor. Everything to me would be square, white, and perfect, right? And angles, right? So. We had lots of conversations about design, and my job was to say, I can build that, or I can't build that, or I can build that, it's going to cost X amount, go back to the drawing board, and we try to figure out again. So we had lots and lots of time doing that. But the biggest part for me was the way this project came together. We had 1,200 people on this site at one time for weeks on end, and building this canopy was an amazing accomplishment. And we literally had 7 mill factories going at one time in different parts of the country. 7 different mill companies, mill factories working on the steel. Very complicated steel structure. We actually built it off-site, cribbed it, built it, brought it, took it apart, and brought it here to site and put it up. Now I think we'll show some photos of us lifting the building. We actually lifted the entire building structure. It was one of the largest building lifts performed. But the way the team worked together, it was truly amazing. And we are still friends with many of the people that worked on the job. And we would have people from the trades literally saying in the hall, I want to go to the Bayview project because it's an incredible project, it's well run, and they really truly care about what we're doing out there. And we had started a program, and maybe you can talk about it a little bit later, with the American Heart Association. You know, safety is a big thing on a construction site, right? And it's typical: work boots, safety glasses, don't stand on ladders that, you know, above your belt, but all these things that are safety driven. They were nice, they were great. But we actually took it a little further and invited the American Heart Association in to help us. And they brought out a program to talk about what's right to eat on a project. They did heart monitoring, they did salt, stress, all this kind of stuff that just was one more level of, we really care about you, not just because it's good for insurance, which it is, but it's also great for the families. And many of these people that were working on this were like, I didn't even know I had high blood pressure, like super high blood pressure, some of them. And they were just amazed. They would go home and they would tell their family, like, I got to do something about that. I got to change the way I'm doing. Or some of them went for medical attention right away, saying, you know, your levels are amazingly high. But that was the kind of thing that we did out here, just not to talk about it, but really kind of deliver on being a good owner and above and beyond, and really caring about people as they came and went from the job. We had over 6 million work hours on this project. 6 million. We had the lowest recorded rate in the industry. So those are pretty amazing facts and figures. That is really what I'm really proud of on this whole project.
That's a lot about you. Hi, I'm Jeff Curry. I am director for Mr. Antonelli for cost and process controls for construction. My prior job was the project lead for Bayview. So what does that mean? So Michelle and I, early on in the design concepts, how we work through with the design architects on what they're doing, how we execute it. With Jen in mind down the road, we knew that you'd have to operate this facility at some point going forward. And Kevin talked about his duality of partnership with me. Once I was his boss, now he's my boss. But that's why you don't really burn bridges. You stay friends and you work well. But we have a great partnership on it. I am a alumni of HBCU, TU, Tuskegee for you that don't know. So I've been at Google far longer than I want to say, doing multiple jobs. But it's all been great. My enjoyment with this project has really been, number one, the team, number two, the challenge that we were given, that Google gives us that opportunity to just challenge us about what we build and how we build it. There's a lot of things we will talk about in the Q&A and some of the presentations about what our drivers are. It's not about just building. How do we build a fantastic building like this? Is because we have principles that we were trying to build to. From really expression of the building, but sustainability, healthy well-being for our employees in the building. Kevin talked about how we really concerned, not only are we care about our employees, but people that are working on our projects. They should get the same care and the same concerns that we treat our employees with. And that's, I think it's important for us to think about mental well-being on a job at this scale and complexity for the duration. How do you keep a team together? It's one of the things that I'm really proud about how we did it. The design element for the project, there's many that I care about. I am still fascinated, and I kept pointing out to my design team about that connection at the node on the top of the canopy columns. I've never seen anything like that, and I know what complexities they had to deal with, how we had an international team dealing with that, and how concept proofed out in execution. So I love that connection in the canopies, if I had to pick one thing. But I just want to say welcome, everyone. Glad you're here. We have a lot more I want to share with you, so thanks.
Amazing. Thank you. I mean, incredible introductions and shares. I think we can all agree there. And just everything you've touched on in terms of the process and the project, you've talked about operations and the scale of it. Like, can you just share with our audience just how that all began and just how you approach a project like this at this scale with this workforce and build something as incredible as this? Like, where do you start? Any key things in the process that you just want to talk about, like from inception to completion?
Maybe
I'll start with how we interacted with Larry.
Maybe I'll get this off for us, but definitely join in. And then I think even after the initial slides, which are really in the kind of early part of this, I think we'll each have our own stories with it. So if you don't mind going to the next slide. So our role within Google, we're in the real estate group, all four of us. And our role essentially is to create environments where Googlers thrive, which seems like common day, like that's what offices do. But if you think about it, when Google started 25 years ago now, that was not how businesses thought about things. They thought like, no, we're gonna like drive for productivity and like, we're just gonna have people work wherever we can have them work. And this was a really kind of radical idea at the time. Like, no, if we make environments where people who work there are happy and healthy, the business will thrive too. The business will be healthy. And it was a bet that turned out that it paid off, so that was great. And over the years, it's evolved in terms of what we've been able to how we've been able to think about it. So in early days, it was thinking about workplaces where you could do your best work, you could focus, you could collaborate, socialize, learn. How can we have casual collisions? Because we know that's where a lot of innovation comes from, is not just where you sit and the people you sit by, but people you might meet in the micro kitchen, or people you might meet in the courtyard, or walking to work, or on the bus. And then early days of sustainability was a lot around healthy air quality. So even though we don't talk about it that much, and I think even not all Googlers even know, but even from the beginning, we have a really robust program of materials that have to go through a red list review. So we make sure that no materials in the buildings have any toxins in them. We have really high quality air. And then also early days of sustainability was thinking about electricity and how we can produce our own energy. So we did a lot of solar panels above parking areas and on top of our buildings. Next slide. But in terms of how we think about the workplace ahead, and thank God we were thinking about it with these buildings, because we set out with a premise of how do we make places that will be vibrant and functional decades, a century from now, when we have no idea how we're working. And luckily we thought about that in 2015, because it turns out we have no idea how we're going to be working like next year kind of thing. And as we start to imagine what is a workplace when we start having more artificial intelligence, that we can be collaborating with robotics, now that we have quantum computing, how might that allow us to be able to detach more from our desks and be able to be productive with high volume of power and connection anywhere? And how might even things like autonomous vehicles change the way that we might be able to get around with our workplaces? Next one. And then on top of that, we have this commitment from our leadership, from Sundar, that Google intends to be carbon-free by 2030. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in all our offices and our data centers, which is a pretty incredible and highly ambitious and audacious goal to have. And on top of that, even wanting to do so in a way that hopefully can be scalable to other companies, so that it needs to be something that's still like cost effective and time effective. Next one. So we have all of these things. So as we go through those, if you don't mind clicking through, sorry, I left an animation here. So when we started this project then, and please chime in here, like how can we make sure that this is vibrant and productive? And how might it be in our climate in the future of how we work and live and play too? And how might we build places that are carbon-free by 2030 in a scalable way for others? And how might we think about spaces, tools, and norms so Googlers can be their most productive and creative and connected with highest levels of well-being? And then finally, how do we think about sustainability and building strategies, but from the lens of the human experience? So I don't know if you guys are familiar with like LEEDs, certification systems for green buildings, which is fantastic, but it can be sort of a checklist that you can go through. But instead we wanted to say, how do we start with that human experience first and the Googler experience? And that was our lens for sustainability on this. Next one. And then on top of that, as Kevin mentioned, when you have, our CEO at the time was Larry Page, and when you have somebody who thinks about how we might live in outer space and how can we make buildings that are healthy and can be accessible to everybody on the planet, and who, when you talk about any topic that you feel like you might be actually an expert in, he will then turn to you and say, oh, I read a book on that last night that's 400 pages long, and let me tell you all the reasons why you're wrong. That becomes a very different process for designing a building. And so we have to start from scratch, not just literally what the design is, but what is a process to work with a human like this? And so we hired 2 architects, not 1, but 2, Bjarke Ingels Group and Heatherwick Studio. And most people would think like, oh, you're doing 2 projects. You'll have one architect work on one and the other architect work on the other. No, we had both work on both, because it took a whole group of us, builders, makers, engineers, architects, all at the table with him. And we had to be building things, next slide, while we were doing it, because if it was only drawing things and showing him renderings, then it's a debate, and he can debate anybody under the table. So we had to be building things while we were doing it. And we were actually very inspired by some of the structures here in the NASA field. If you saw when you were driving in, some of the hangars, those are structures that are really simple, have very, like the least amount of structure in order to make a highly adaptable building that has handled many things over many decades. And so that was a big inspiration for us. Next one. And so it really became these 3 parts of the building that you experience today: the canopy overhead, the kind of human scale in between, and the landscape that goes inside and outside. Next one. Yeah, and there is us, like making things literally, and this is in the early days of design. We were making physical prototypes that Larry would sometimes even climb on. And, then he actually was interacting with the thing, because the laws of physics was the only one that he would really respect. And so that's how we had to be making full-size mock-ups of things. even in concept phase.
Well, he accepted it, but he still challenged the laws of physics.
It's quite true. There's a lot that you don't see that we ended up not doing next door.
But we did experiment, and one thing you showed there was like, the R&D effort, really. We tested things before we got it. People asking, how do we get into production? We tested things. We tested mock-ups, proof of concept, constructability. You started having to think about all those things, how you would put a building together. Right?
And I would roll my eyes quite a bit.
But it was really great because this was during concept design that we had Kevin and a team of smart builders too. It also changes things when you have people around a physical thing. You get on the same page pretty quickly versus if you're looking in renderings and drawings even, and even people who like, this is our practice and this is what we do all day, you can be imagining different things. So it was a good forcing factor. Next one. And then things like the photovoltaic. So how could we really make an extraordinary sustainable building that really pushes the boundaries? How can we make a building that produces its own energy, that is the healthiest building on the planet, that has the largest geothermal system in North America, that is the largest living building challenge with the water's pedal building. So it actually is net water positive, which I'm sure the team will share. But even on these PVs, how could we produce energy but have it be beautiful and have it be productive? And we looked for things that were on the market. There was nothing on the market that actually was a beautiful solar panel. I mean, I think solar panels are beautiful, but in a way that actually other people would think that they're beautiful. And so this is one of the great things about this project is even though this product was not on the market at the time, because we tested things in advance and luckily our leadership let us take the risk of, okay, this is not on the market, but okay, we're gonna buy it and we're gonna buy like 1 million square feet of it and hope that it works. And we did lots of time escalation testing. Like we did a lot to mitigate the risks, but now it's available on the market. We have no financial gain in it, but we helped get it to the market, which I love. So this is actually probably my favorite design aspect. And it took a lot to work with the engineers on the team too, who really thought the black one was the most beautiful. And then on the lighter color, like how can we make that where like it feels like it's like a silvery shingle, so it looks like metal, and how do we get that to be reflective? And so over time, then we got it so it is this, hopefully you saw it like silvery, shimmery, glowy. It almost looks like metal and you can't quite tell what it is, and it reflects the sky at different times of the day and almost disappears. It's like something you've never seen before, hopefully, I think, when you look at it.
And I think you need to share some of the constraints you work through as well, because given our proximity to Moffett Airfield, it couldn't be too reflective, or we would, shine in the light or shine in the eyes of pilots, and then we go back to our favorite birds too. So we can't be too reflective for the birds. So there's all kinds of constraints.
And Kevin also wanted to make sure he was thinking about you, making sure that it also can be something we can clean or that wouldn't have to be cleaned as often as typical solar panels. So we did come up with a unique way of even having a layer on top that allowed the sun to come through and holding the sunlight and even actually making the cells below that be more productive, but in a way that makes it less reflective and easier to clean.
And he also thought about us to get up there, because that's one of our questions is how do we get up there? Did you all see that on your tour? All over the building, there are catwalks. So we can go up there and walk along the edge from the inside, and then there are doors to get out to the roof. So thank you for that.
I think I just have maybe 1 or 2 slides more and then passing it over to my friends here. Okay, yeah, I think 2 more slides. So this one, and hopefully you saw this on your tours, that it really sets up that we have this lower level that hopefully is vibrant and more like a marketplace and buzzy with our cafes and larger conference rooms and collaboration spaces. And then the courtyards throughout, which each one is unique. And so that way then it helps with wayfinding. And then on the upper level, it's really designed more like a really flexible space so that the spaces can change at the speed of business. And I don't know if any of you go to Burning Man. I have not, but our founders do. And it was really thinking about this whole upper level being more like Burning Man than office, in the sense of having pathways where people can exit and know where they're sitting, but having it be really flexible so teams can make it their own within their own areas, and they can set the rules and the terms of what will help them do their best work. So everything up there is quite flexible. which is a whole new thing in itself and lots of challenges, but hopefully over time then we'll make it something that will help people do their best work. So as we were doing these designs then and sort of going into later phases, Jeff and Kevin definitely were next up for thinking, okay, how do we start thinking about really building these things, especially in a way that we had not an insane budget to do this. So we had a lot of budget constraints. We had to cut a lot of things over the period of the project in order to deliver it on the budget that we had. I don't know if you guys want to talk about that at all.
So the first thing that we did was to confuse the market when we bought the product. So typically in a process, you bring in a general contractors and you ask them to present their team and how they're going to build this product and blah, blah, blah. Well, I had done that for 25 years at Turner, and I said to the team when we were setting up the interviews, I said, how about this morning we change things up? And they were like, what do you mean change things up? And I said, they're all going to come in and they're going to have their baked sales process, and the superintendent's going to talk, and the engineer's going to talk, and the owner's going to talk, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, I don't really want to sit there for 6 hours listening to this. So I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to ask them, we gave them an hour to look at the design that we had come up with the concept design. And we asked them to budget it and tell us how long it would take them to build. And they were like, what? And they said, but we have a presentation. And I said, that's really great. How long is it going to take you to build this? And how much money is it going to be? And the team, they were just laughing at me like, you just did this in like 10 minutes before the session that we started. I said, well, we might as well lay the grounds early because we know this is not going to be a typical job. We better figure out who is the most flexible in all of these groups. And you will see immediately how the teams react, right? You'll see that the leads start taking the lead. They'll break into estimating, they'll break into scheduling. And so we watched the whole process, and that's the team that we picked. And they were the most flexible for us. And we needed that to build this. There was no way we were going to have the traditional, well, I've never built this before. I can't do that. We needed the real, we can do it. This is exciting. This is cool, right? This is 2.2 million square feet of new build. That, we had to tear out the old foundations that we had in for the previous building to start. We also, at the same time, had to work with NASA, who never had a permitting department. So they are the permitting agency, and they're our landlord, which is a double complication, right? So we had to set up like a city so that they could permit for us. And we literally had their permitting people down the end of the street. And then so you break these big packages. You don't just design this all at once, right? These come in multiple packages as you're building it, and you're releasing the design, and you're meeting with them. And so that was the other constraint that we had. But setting that all up was an amazing feat in and of itself, and dealing with NASA was difficult because they're not a city agency that does this every day, right? So that was another challenge. Once we got past that, the easy part started, was to build this. And as I talked earlier, we had 7 mill factories working on that steel. And actually, we had a 3-inch deflection we were shooting for from the point up at the top to the next node. That Jeff's favorite thing up there is the node. And so we had 3 inches of theoretical deflection. We had no idea what physics and was going to do, and gravity. And so we actually came within, I think we were 2 3/4 of an inch. But we literally would design those nodes in the morning. We would send them to Australia for the manufacturers to look at and say, okay, I really can't build that because I have to put this piece of steel has to go in first so that I can weld the connection this way, and then I got another piece of steel that has to come in here, but I can't get in behind it to weld, so I got to turn that. And it would literally come back in the morning, and then the engineers would look at it again and say, okay, let's cut the knife, we'll move the knife this way, and we did this for months. We had 4 PhDs working with us, And I'd fly down to LA about once a week, and we would just sit there for hours trying to figure out how to build this and then how to lift it. And then after that, it just was the whole team starting to grow and all that kind of stuff to build it. So it was an amazing process. I don't know if we have the little slide of lifting up the canopy, but it was pretty cool. If we have it, you don't know if it'll work.
I don't think it got put in.
Oh, all right.
So one thing that was key to all this, all the technical stuff that we just talked about is really individuals. From the very beginning of the challenge that we had from an individual and how we looked at our employees and how we were selecting a team, we used a process called IPD, Integrated Project Delivery. Why would we use that? Because it was key for us to have players that were going to be at the table and have voice and help us solve these complex problems. So we talk about, and we wanted to create an environment where they felt secure and willing to engage and take the opportunity to voice their opinions and help us solve problems. And I think one of the things that key for me is how complex it is. We can talk about that all day and might bore most of you about that, but I think the thing is about the individuals. We talk about individuals in this process.
Yeah. So this is a short video on the process that we went through.
He didn't have access?
Oh, bummer. Okay, never mind. We could probably share it later on. I mean, yeah. But yeah, I would agree with Jeff. What we talked about out here too is people are going to make mistakes. Absolutely not. No way are we doing this job at this speed without making mistakes. And our fundamental leadership was, if you make a mistake, tell us about it so we can fix it together soon, because we can't fix it later on when we got concrete in place. That's a lot more expensive and time consuming to do that. And we had a lot of engineers that made mistakes. I forgot to put the sump pumps in. Oh boy, there's piping that goes with those sump pumps. Yeah, I forgot those too. Okay, so what do we do? And then so the mechanical engineer, then the mechanical plumbers would get involved, and we would solve it. Maybe it would cost us a few dollars more, but we would say, okay, well, we have to find money someplace else. Like Michelle said, it wasn't an open checkbook. And actually, I got in big trouble when I agreed to put in the geothermal system.
Now you didn't get in trouble.
And I was in a meeting with our boss, and he said, what'd you do that for? And I said, well, I think it's a good return on investment, and I think it'll be good for us to do. And he said, you didn't ask me. And I said, yeah, but I think it was a good idea, but you never gave me a chance to say yes or no. And I said, you're right, I didn't. And so I got scolded. Now it's the largest geothermal pile system in the United States, and it's like, but it was like, that's the kind of stuff that we kind of just had to do and push the envelope on everything. So we did, and we have a great team, and we finished, as you can see, this amazing project, and every time I drive up to it, I get, it's my favorite project in my 35 years of construction. So I don't think I'll ever be able to repeat another one of these, just because of all the design, the openness of Google to allow us to do this, and then the actual field people who put this together. We'd have some people drive up and look at the canopy, the roofers, and literally some of them would turn around and go drive out in the morning and say, I am not spending all day on that roof out here in California. It gets pretty hot, right? And the roof gets pretty hot. And they literally, you had to put ropes on and rope off, and then they would slide the material down piece by piece and work their way up the canopy all day facing like this, on the
right.
Day after day after day. And so we ended up incentivizing them. We said, if you come to this project, we'll pay you 25% more than you're making on another project. We had people showing up then, and they really wanted to work, and actually it was fun. They enjoyed it, but it was a safe project at the same time. So there's a lot of things that we did that were pretty innovative, not just from the design, but from the construction side as well.
Thank you all so much for sharing your stories. I think we can all agree that the effort, time, energy, and decisions you put into building this is incredible. And sustainability and accessibility being in the front, I think, is very inspiring. So could you give us some tips for us at home how we can make our own homes more sustainable?
Well, I just put my house on. I got panels on my house, and I love it. You know, for solar, and that's one. And then we're getting rid of gas in our house. That's another one, right? So we can. What's that?
Switching from gas to what?
From gas to electricity. Yeah, all electric. So those are a couple of things that I did.
I would do a simpler process is look at what's in your house right now. One thing Michelle talked about is what is the content of the material in your house right now, and what are you bringing in? So one thing we talk about the content of makeup of materials. What's the chemicals in those buildings? If you smell something in your house, one thing about this building, particular building, because we did vet all the materials, there was no new car smell in here. There was no off-gassing of materials. For your home, I would say assess what you have in there right now. Be aware of what you're bringing in. There's reference teams you can go look at. What materials are a problem? The simple thing for us is like insulation in this building, formaldehyde. We found a rock wool that didn't have formaldehyde in it. It's the simple questions that you ask that help solve some of your personal belongings in your home. Indoor air quality is a key to your health. One thing here we do here is that indoor air quality, air exchanges, we're good with that. One thing when we had the fires, California fires, we're not recirculating the air. We do one in, one out, right? So I think the simple thing is to do an assessment on your home. Pick up everything, smell it. If you look at the content or look online and see what it's made up of. Look at the manufacturer and what it is. Be aware of what you're putting in your home. What's in there and what are you putting in?
And I would add, it goes one in, one out, but it also goes through significant filtration. So that's how we can keep 100% outside air when we have wildfires.
Yeah, you don't have to buy, you can buy solar panels and all those other things like that, but I think the first thing is look at what you can solve here today.
And I would add, a key is being self-sustaining.
Right.
So it's kind of that overarching component. I mean, lifetime example, the city of Mountain View had a massive water outage this morning, and it impacted a large number of buildings. It did not impact this building because this building is self-sustaining.
Net positive.
It came to benefit. Look at that. Yeah. So that's something that, is really helpful. And that would be true for anybody's home as well.
Something I've really enjoyed learning on this project and other projects that we do at Google is that unique aspect of looking at sustainability from the human experience lens in terms of how you make priorities. And like health, like what are the aspects of sustainability that will help you and help your health? Like the HEPA air filters, is something that we added to our house. We started off with the PVs, like that's the main thing. Like we're going to produce our own energy. That's great. Cool. But like we were having really bad air quality because of the fires. And so we've done the HEPA air filters, and similar to Kevin, my husband now is saying, hey, we're going to get rid of the gas range and go electric for health. And so that I think is a helpful lens to even think about in your homes, and certainly reusing materials. It's something that we've also been doing, like rather than buying new furniture, we buy used furniture and then we'll like maybe do some updates with it, upcycling it rather than buying new, because then if it did have any off-gassing, that has already happened. So I love that lens too.
Amazing. We're just conscious of time as well. I want to delve deeper with you all. So much you've shared that we could just like keep going on, but I'm going to open it up. We're going to open it up to the audience if there's any questions for anyone on the panel actually. Oh, one already? Yes, please.
So I heard you talk about budget. I wanted to know how long before you receive a return on your investment outside of obviously having a sustainable facility, and it's amazing, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here, but just on the money side of it, and then when you do see investment outside of the corporate goals you already have, what other initiatives do you think you want to allocate this money to, reallocate this money to outside of HBCUs?
I love that. I can take like a piece of that, yeah. But I'm sure my colleagues here will have many better answers. But on the PV side, we had to be responsible. We're a publicly traded company. Even though it was something that hadn't been on the market yet, we had to prove through data to our CEO and CFO that there was going to be no more than a 7-year payoff for those panels. And that was the tough part of like finding something that was beautiful that would have that return on investment that fast. which is why I think it's so exciting, because that means like that's scalable for other developers and other architects too. My first job was working for Frank Gehry, if you guys know him, who does like big curved metal buildings, and they're so beautiful, but they're made out of titanium and stainless steel, and those materials are not cheap. But what about now doing buildings like that out of this material? And I think we're all hopeful that this will change even how architects think about materiality. And so we're taking this further now. So now we're actually working on how can we have beautiful solar panels on the vertical parts of new buildings that we do. So instead of doing metal or brick or stucco on those vertical parts, the parts where you don't have window, what if all of those surfaces also produce energy, but look like metal or look like something that is, you know, kind of soft, but metal-ish. And so that's something that we're pretty excited about. Like, how can we do that and do that in a way that also have a seven-year return on investment? I love that you asked that question, because it's so key to making things scalable. Because if we had just done something that was really cool and beautiful, but not affordable for other developers to do, will make a difference, but not the kind of difference at Google scale that we can have. And that's something that with this project, our leadership really wanted us to do, is make things that will actually change the market and do things that every developer could do. Now, let's be fair, like every developer cannot do this kind of building that we're talking about. We did so many things that were absolutely extraordinary. But when we break it down to pieces of things, the pieces are scalable.
Yeah, I mean, the budget was, you can't build something that's going to cost more than another developer would do. Now, that was the baseline, right? But no developer puts the dragon scale on. So we'd say, okay, it's $500 a square foot for a typical office building in the Bay Area. And we'd say, but you know, if we're going to do this dragon scale, it's $25 a square foot. Okay, and what's the return on investment for that? Bang. The geothermal, what's the return on investment? What's the return? You add those up, right? And then so you can justify, like, okay, a developer would do this base building, but this is really, these are the important things to Google. And they weren't like, you know, they capitalized 20, 15 years, any kind of the, you know, capital spend that you do on a regular typical building. So they all had to fall, and we had to fight. That's where those discussions with, okay, well, we really can't afford that. We got to back off. It's too long, a payback, doesn't make sense, too expensive. But that was the baseline of base budget. Tell me what we're doing that's incremental on top of that, and tell me all the paybacks and why it's good for us to do that. And that's how we kept doing this trade-off and okay up. There was, like Michelle said, there was lots of, we can't do that. We just, it's not going to work.
So painful. I'm not going to lie. Literally, there were times when I was crying, like sobbing, crying. I'm not kidding, of things that felt like we were taking it out of the project to get to this budget. And that was so painful. But in the end, it was also really good because it forced us to prioritize the main parts of the building. And yeah, it's so easy to throw money and stuff. Okay, I have one more part to the answer to this. Okay, please.
Well, and I was just going to say, your ROI comes faster when you contemplate the productivity of the engineers. And by that, I mean, again, today's example, this building seats almost 5,000 people. If we had had to close the building, which we did in other areas of the portfolio, and send home 5,000 people, and they've already done their morning commute, that cost is extravagant. And not to mention there are events happening. And if we'd had to say, Larry, sorry, you need to hold it somewhere else, that's a huge impact, right? So to avoid that, there's a much faster ROI.
One of the design things we did, everything was not just a single thing, it was intentional. And how did it connect to the whole? So every design element we talked about, it's like, it had to have a purpose. And what Michelle talked about and what Kevin went through and Jan, is like, things are connected. They're not individuals. Like we did set out to move the market in certain areas. We've been watching, you know, indoor air quality is key for us. Healthy materials, what do we put in the building? Now you see a lot of manufacturers of products disclosing their chemical makeup, looking at what they're putting in the building, their products, and making those things healthier. So everything is, you look at things holistically and not in a silo, right? So we try to make those connections, and the paybacks happen. Corporately, we get marching orders on what we're going to focus on. And our responsibility is to make sure we deliver on those, but financially, prudent about it.
And an example of what Jeff is talking about is even looking at this image that we have on the screen. That roof is doing a whole bunch of things all at once, just with that layer and the shape. It's producing the energy of the building. It is based on where the windows are, having the ability for every single desk to have views in daylight outside. So there's no more like corporate, like corner office. Some people get a view, some people don't. Everyone does. It's shaped for acoustics. So it's shaped like the inside of an opera house so that the whole upper level is actually pretty quiet. It also allows us to capture all the rainwater and have it cascade down. And then we can store that water. We can treat it and irrigate it and reuse that water. And so it's like a whole bunch of factors right in that small layer. And then the shape comes from thinking about how can we have long span between the columns to allow us to have flexibility with the least amount of steel, the least amount of material. So hopefully then will cost us the least, will create the least amount of carbon. And so that shape is based on a catenary structure, which is like a bridge, which has the least amount of steel.
And subliminally, it makes you happy because every single one of those looks like a smile.
And we don't have to run artificial lights during the day for the most part. Natural lighting is enough. So you don't consume energy with lighting.
I think we have time for one more question.
Oh,
oh wow.
Love it.
I think it was Tori. I think I saw Tori's answer.
I was just wondering if you shared already or if you plan on sharing your Gantt chart or project management for this project. Because academically, to study what you did here would be amazing. A huge learning opportunity for the whole globe, I think, if you were to share that. I just wanted
You talking about team structure?
like a Gantt chart or like a project management.
Part of the flow?
The whole project,
Okay.
all the different pieces that came together to make this happen.
Yeah.
I haven't done it yet. But it's something to think about.
I love that. We have a website that shares like the details and materials and design aspects because we just want to open source that so that people can just leverage whatever's helpful and improve from there. But I love the idea that you're bringing up of like the Gantt chart and the process and the team structure. I think we should totally do that.
I think you should.
You gonna take a couple more? Or?
All right, we can take one more question because there's a lot of hands.
Whoa,
I think
okay.
this showed
You are
up.
fast.
So I would like to ask,
Okay, we can do all three.
This is mostly, like, I just wanted to ask, like, what did you guys major in college, and how did that kind of transfer the work into, like, what this project is?
Great question.
I was in architecture, so this is right up my alley. So from the very beginning for me, it's like, managing the process, understanding architecture, not from the architectural perspective, just for design's sake, but how people interact in space. That's always been one of my focuses. Like, how do I observe how people function in space? Does that space function the way people use it? Does it function how it was designed to be used? So the psychology of space and three-dimensional world for me, that's something I really like. So
I was in law.
Also totally unrelated, I was in services.
You're in health services. Oh, this is fascinating. Thank you for this question. I didn't even know.
yeah, but he says law. He started out as a policeman, then he gonna do.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like Jeff. I am traditional architect, but on an untraditional path, and certainly have so appreciated the kind of the ability that this work brings to the scale of work. And so before this, I was more like a traditional architect of doing like one building at a time, which is exciting, but you only have so much impact. Whereas this hopefully has the ability to impact more parts of an industry through each building we do.
Amazing.
All right, I know there was a hand over here and a hand over here, so we'll do here and then we'll go back over here.
So earlier in the slide, I noticed the future of Google, and I saw the virtual reality under that, and I was wondering if there's any like applications that you guys had thought about, or how you guys plan to implement that.
Deploying AI in our design process?
Well, but he has virtual reality first, so
okay.
VR.
Do you want to take VR or do you want me to?
That's R&D. You take that one.
Okay. So great question. We definitely had to use VR on this. And I know that we did it through construction phase, and I think Kevin and Jeff can certainly speak to that. But even earlier in the design phase, we had no idea on this upper level, especially with this kind of scale of the interior of a building. It's like a city. It's like a small town. And it was hard to imagine through any renderings and floor plans what it feels like. And so we had the team make a full model in VR of this. And there were weeks when Jeff and I would spend hours and hours walking all the spaces in VR because you'd find things. You would, like, it would look good on plan, but then you'd try and be like, I don't know where I'm going. I'm totally lost, or I can't, like, there's no view here. And it's such a different scale. So we leveraged VR a lot. And then on top of that, because we also wanted acoustics to work well on the upper level and still have the vibrancy and vitality and loudness on the lower level, we had to also do a lot of modeling on acoustics. And so we made this room, if you remember at the lab, where we had a sound room where then folks could come in. This was before Jen's time, pre-Jen. This is how we think about things, pre-Jen and after Jen. But Kevin and Jeff could come in and put on the headset and walk through the spaces, but also hear then in the different spaces what the acoustics might be like. And that helped us make decisions on the material of the roof, on the shape of the roof, where we were going to have different types of the partitions in order to have both optimal acoustics and optimal user experience. So great question.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
One of the things operationally that we'll do, again, love our visitors, but I will tell you that we get thousands of tour requests a week, which is a lot of resources for us. So that's a wonderful VR opportunity. As it said, people can come in and just do a VR tour and never really enter the building. And for us, it's not just a staffing, it's also a security perspective. No doubt everybody here was well behaved, but not everybody is. So it's also that some people tend to wander off into the secured areas. So that way we don't have to even let them in to the secured areas, you know? So that's VR coming.
Oh, I love that. So are we going to go through our model or the external?
Last question, here we go.
Okay, my name is Bertha. I'm a senior computer information systems student from Fairview. And I was wondering, what was the hardest part of bringing this to life? Thank you.
Wow.
The hardest part?
Yeah, pick one. Pick one.
All right, you answer that one. You saw first.
I would have to say working with NASA.
That does not leave this room.
They just didn't understand the process and the speed at which we needed to work. And being the landlord, they often confused being the landlord with the permitting agency. And they'd run those two together and they'd kind of hold us hostage on one thing for another. And it'd be like, wait a minute, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about here.
See?
So I think that was really the most difficult thing. And then NASA, the city of Mountain View doesn't really like NASA, and NASA doesn't really like the city of Mountain View. So,
all right.
It was this, you know.
All right.
So there was a lot of
political
stuff that was like unnecessary that we had to deal with in order to get this thing really moving.
Maybe we can edit that whole
Can you elaborate more on how you went from police officers?
Oh, geez.
No, I'll tell you afterwards. I got a couple of stories he told me. So, what was the question?
What's the hardest part?
The hardest part.
Oh, yeah.
Glasses, Jeff.
I got him. I think for me, it's just keeping the team working toward the same objective. And that's one of the things we kept constantly talked about. And I think it proved itself out in decision making. What was the prioritization that we had? Because we couldn't, we had to prioritize something, and people were trying to dismiss things like, no, we still need to do this, but to what degree can we do it? I think just really having that partnership and understanding, and we all agree that we're going to have a discussion about this and move it forward. That was a question asked about the team size. I think we had like 130 consultants or something like that on
Oh,
it.
God, yeah.
And that's different teams,
Yeah.
that's different companies,
Yep.
not individuals.
So that integrated project delivery concept that I spoke of earlier was really key for me, is that we want everyone to share in the objective of the project. And they wanted them to feel like they had ownership, because they did. If you're at the table, you better have a voice, you're expected to have a voice, and you're expected to give support to it. So the complexity of the project, and I loved it because, design is problem solving. And, old school architecture design is problem solving. You can have constraints. And the best thing about it is, like, how are you going to manage that? How do you optimize it? It's as simple as that. And granted, Google gave us a great opportunity in this project because they challenged us on a lot of fronts. But to me, the simplicity of having a person next to me, understanding and being willing to help solve the problem was the key.
And I would say staffing for innovation that had not, for brand new things. So you're trying to staff people that can service stormwater and wastewater and servicing dragon scales that, didn't happen anywhere else, geothermal systems, so we're trying to make sure we know these systems and can have people that can service these systems that didn't exist anywhere else, so how do you hire someone to do that?
Hire somebody for some of that.
Exactly. Yeah. Such a good point. I would say from my end, it was not giving up. Just not giving up. Like, there were so many times when things didn't work, was too expensive, or wasn't going to fly for code, or that happened again and again and again. And just not giving up and keeping no, this is important. We're going to find a way. We'll just there's always a way. We're just going to find it. And keeping that heart and keeping that passion was rewarding, but hard sometimes. But I think that's really what made this happen, is all of us were like, okay, no, we're just going to keep trying at it. We're not going to give up. We're not going to compromise.
And the mantra is, we are nothing if not agile and flexible.
There was it.
Amazing. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. And our panelists, big round of applause. Thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your experiences. I know we didn't scratch the surface here. We all know that. We'll just hand the ball back to Larry to wrap up the session. Thank you again so much.
Yeah, thank you all so much.
So we're going to do a short break here in a moment. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to showcase something here, because we're going to be using this a lot tomorrow at the event. So with this, I'll show you one thing. I'm going to come back up to the top. If everybody, I'll present this right here. So this website and this QR code is the destination for all things about this event. So you may have gotten it on the email announcements. If you don't have it, go ahead and QR code it or type it in. And we're going to do a little test drive to show you what we're going to be doing here. So with that, looks like everybody has it up. So right now, when you do the QR code or you type this in, hopefully this question will pop up. How's your experience? And this will create something pretty cool here in a couple of minutes. Yeah, you can go ahead and fill that out. There we go. Yeah, it's a real-time cinema. Yeah, brought to you by my good friend Aaron at Meeting Pulse, wherever Aaron is. See something back there. There he is, back there. So Aaron, I'm going to go to the, which tour? Which, actually, if you could, is it the first link or the first link? Okay. So literally, so hopefully, well, check this. It's pretty. That's pretty. And so, as you
Jeff, right as well.
Huh? There we go. Oh, he took that. Yeah. So as you are voting, the results are showing up right there. The different memes and things like that.
Okay.
There we go. So live poll.
Come on.
Oh God.
So far, people are doing that pretty good. Yeah, there we go. So I guess we like it.
Yay!
That's the idea. Yeah.
More often.
Was that? Nice one. Oh, amazing. There we go.
Oh, there we go.
We needed a scroll.
I had to keep you on edge here for a minute, just to, you know, keep you engaged here.
Said okay.
Find those people, who they are. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So for the experience for the rest of today and tomorrow, if you can just keep that browser up, you know, on your phones, we're going to be using that throughout the whole experience. Tomorrow we're going to do some Q&A, so you can ask questions through the app. You can rate us or rate different things through the app. So there's a number of ways to engage and have fun with that, all right? So we're going to have the second panel discussion, but before we do that, we're going to take a little break. So you can just stand up. You can meet folks here, float around, get something to eat. But thank you again.
Thank you so much.